Terry Francona is thinking outside the box. The Reds are taking 6 starting pitchers north, but it's not what you think.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff. He's Steve. And on today's podcast that is brought to you by MLB The Show 26, by the way, visit MLBTHESHOW/locked on and use the code locked on to unlock a pack for use in Diamond Dynasty. Available now on PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, rated E for everyone. On today's show, a little bit later on, we'll tell you why there is no spot left in the field that for grabs for the Reds roster. In just a few minutes, we'll dissect how this new pitching plan could probably go wrong. But let's begin with what the Reds are planning to do with their starting rotation. Because, Steve, you are right. This is outside the box. This is actually something that we've talked about in the past, albeit slightly tongue-in-cheek, because we never thought it would happen. The Reds are taking 6 starting pitchers. It was reported by multiple Reds reporters on Tuesday evening-ish that all of Rhett Lowder, Brandon Williamson, and Chase Burns have made the starting rotation on top of the top 3. But all of this being put together is very intriguing because they are not going to expect 6 innings out of these guys every 6th day.
No, and this is not going to be a straight 6-man rotation. This actually kind of lands where you and I have always thought if they were to ever give it a shot, where it would land. That's where it landed. Now, first of all, Terry may wake up tomorrow and read the headlines and be like, how much Guinness did I have yesterday?
Right.
But here's how it's going to work. The Reds are taking 6 pitchers north. They are going to piggyback some combination of Chase Burns, Brandon Williamson, and Rhett Lowder. Those 3 pitchers are all going to work together to cover innings, because what this means is there's one less spot in the bullpen. So we're going to see games where Chase Burns starts, Brandon Williams finishes. We're going to see games where Brandon Williams starts, Rhett Lowder finishes, and vice versa. Those pieces are going to move around to cover innings. Now, from a standpoint of reducing wear and tear on those 3 guys' arms early on, this works brilliantly. This keeps all 3 stretched out. It keeps all 3 at the big league level, and it keeps all 3 facing big league hitters, helping the Cincinnati Reds win baseball games. The downside of it comes a little bit later, which we're going to get into in the second segment of today's show, because there are multiple possibilities of a downside. But here's what I like, Jeff. I like that Terry is trying to get the best arms in the rotation, even though they might not all quite be ready to throw 100 pitches every time out, which is where he said he wants everybody to be. That's Terry Francona's goal for the starting rotation, for all 5 guys to hit opening day ready to throw 100 pitches. They are clearly not there based on coming off of injury, based on some setbacks in spring training, based on just being careful with arms that haven't had a lot of wear and tear on them for the previous couple of years in Lowder and Williamson. So I like the idea of setting things up this way. I'm not sure how long it can last, but I like them starting out this way, especially when you look at the April schedule and know that early on, there are some off days built in that are going to limit the need for a 5th starter, limit the need for guys to throw a lot of innings early on.
Right. And I think that's the important part of this, is that he's not saying that, yes, we are committed to, if Rhett Lowder only goes 4 innings, Brandon Williamson has to come in and throw another 4 innings or something like that. Or we must pitch Chase Burns and Brandon Williamson on the same day. There's a little bit of this where they will communicate that strategy to the players. They're just not outlining it right now. That was even something that he had mentioned to reporters, is that, yes, the idea is that these guys will be available for this plan, but we're not giving you all of our strategy with this right now. I have no doubt whatsoever that this strategy came from the mind of Derek Johnson. This does not feel like a Tito Francona type of plan. This feels like something where he was given the idea and he signed off on it. Because when you look at these 3 guys, Rhett Lowder has seemed the best and most healthiest and most consistently recovering of all 3 of them. But they are still allowing for the possibility, coming off of a year in which he faced multiple different injuries and lost except for a couple of rehab starts in AAA, an entire year. They're allowing for the fact that some things might just not work out. And so maybe they got to pull him in the fourth or something. And they pull him in the fourth. They put in Brandon Williamson for 2, 3, 4 innings, something like that. But at the same time, they keep those guys on starting rotation routine schedules as well. Because the one thing that we've heard consistently, outside of the deload and the range of motion things, is Chase Burns and Brandon Williamson are still learning the routine of a starting pitcher. And I think that this feeds into that, and this will help them build that routine.
Let's be clear. They said that about Chase Burns, still learning the routine of a starting pitcher. What they said about Brandon Williamson is that he has having a hard time getting back into it, getting back to the 5-day workload. And I think that's just a byproduct of Tommy John and being out for a year. So this also lets the Reds address that, because what that really means to me is he's taking a little bit of extra time to recover between starts. And if you piggyback Brandon Williamson off of Chase Burns this week, and then next week you piggyback him off of Rhett Lowder, you give him an extra day. You give him a 6-day routine versus a 5-day routine while he's still working his way back. And let's be clear, he's still working his way back, coming back from this injury. So I like this. I like this in addressing where these pitchers are at right now. And instead of just simply saying, we are going to shoehorn you into what we want you to do, they're now saying, we want to make sure we get the best guys on the mound every single day. And we can do that if we're a little unorthodox. And I love that. And you're right. I think this came from Derek Johnson. I'm sure Derek Johnson walked into Tito's office and was like, hey, I got an idea, boss. And because if this was from the mind of Tito, we would have seen this in Cleveland, or we would have seen this in Boston. We would have seen this somewhere along the way. We haven't seen that before. This is Derek trying to take his best guys north. And I love it. I love the strategy. I love getting outside the box. I love the potential for it modernizing the way we handle starting rotations. Let's just see how this works, because if it works, other teams will adopt it. That's the history of baseball. When a team tries something new and it works, everybody else starts doing it. So this could be very interesting for the starting pitchers, not only for the Cincinnati Reds, but for baseball, if this pays off.
Because we had talked about the fact that all of the messaging surrounding Chase Burns made it seem as though if he were to be on the opening day rotation, his first start, which albeit won't be till the Pirates series, second series of the year, but his first start would likely be like a 4-inning start. We would not expect him to go 6, and he would have to be ultra efficient with his pitches to go 5, because he's not throwing 100. He's likely throwing 80 pitches in that first start. Yep. So with this, I also kind of think, he's not putting a timeline as to how long they're going to do this, because it's going to be who shows that they can, A, stretch themselves out in a particular game at a consistent level, and B, recover consistently from that start. And that's going to be the key with all of this, in that, we probably will evaluate their performance. And if they are detrimental to the ball club, they'll send them down to AAA. But if it's something where it's like, okay, they're pitching well, but they're pitching 3, maybe 4 innings, and then the next starts 3 and maybe 4, and then the next starts 3 and maybe 4, I think at that point, it's if you're seeing more innings from one guy, I think that guy takes the spot. And then they send the guy who's not necessarily throwing as much down to Louisville.
The only other way I envisioned this playing out other than this was if they did a plug and play on the back 2 rotation spots, where a couple guys were up for 2 turns through the rotation, which is 10 days. And that is also, coincidentally, the number of days you have to stay down if you get sent down. And so if you sent a guy down for 10 days, went 2 times through, brought that guy back up, sent another guy down, they go 2 times through the rotation, and you rotate those 3 guys that way. They could end up there. That could be the next evolution of this. Once all the guys are stretched out, you still keep the guys. And I know there's a segment of Reds country out there, a segment of the everydayers that are going to be in the comment sections, Jeff, saying, well, aren't they still pitching in AAA? You're not saving any wear and tear on their arm. I've seen those comments. It's true. They would still be pitching in AAA, but every pitcher that's ever pitched in AAA and the Major League Baseball tell you it's different. It's different on the amount of adrenaline you're pitching with. It's different with the amount of wear and tear you're putting on your arm. It's just different. So while they would still be pitching, it would be more like a bullpen in between kind of pitching versus actually pitching at the Major League level. So there are still ways this could evolve. I think this is a great starting point, Jeff, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
The interesting part about this plan, though, is it opens them up to some really specific pitfalls. And one of the biggest ones has to do with the stretch run. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. And that's even more so during the NCAA tournament. So many great moments. You got the buzzer beaters, of course, but so many great performances. And you can get in on all of the action over on FanDuel, because FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. There's so many matchups and so many different things to put together and get that parlay profit boost that FanDuel gives to you. Then you can apply that profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout each and every game. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team that you've been following all season, or pick a complete underdog unknown to go all the way. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you find the people who actually fit what you're looking for, the skills, the experience, the location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. For the minute that I'll be talking to you, companies like yours make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of Locked On Reds are going to get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Locked On Reds by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Reds. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. My tongue got a little tied up there at the end, Jeff. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you guys so much. If you're in the audio feeds and you want to check out the Everydayer Club, it is a great deal for you. If you want ad-free Locked On Reds, uninterrupted Locked On Reds, go to the Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer, $5 a month, $50 a year, uninterrupted, ad-free Locked On Reds in the audio channel. Promo code March. Get you a free month. Check it out right now. You're going to love it. Also, you get access to the Discord server, every host, every Locked On show, talking ball across all the channels. Don't miss out on that. All right, Jeff, let's keep talking about this because while it's interesting, it's unorthodox, it's out of the box, it's something new, it does set up a potential for there to be some consequences depending on how long this all plays out. There's two things here, Jeff, I think, that are key potential problems doing this for a long period of time. Potential problem number one is you are pitching all three of Burns, Lowder, and Williamson right out of the gate from opening day, hoping to have a team that goes deep into October. Yes. Those guys are going to run out of innings somewhere along the way. The other potential problem that I see here is that to do this, you are giving up a bullpen spot. You're going from 8 guys in the bullpen to 7 guys in the bullpen. Granted, Brandon Williamson's going to cover one game's worth of those innings, but the other guys are going to have to fill the gap. So the relief pitchers will be throwing more. Those are the two potential problems I see if you were to do this for, half a season, all of a season. Extra wear and tear both on those 3 starting pitchers and the bullpen.
What I find intriguing about that is I think the alternative is, all right, you got a guy, whether it's Williamson or Burns or Lowder, that maybe they are limited to 4 innings. So then you're just admitting to yourself already, all right, we got to cover 5 innings with this bullpen. And so I think that Terry Francona and Derek Johnson probably discussed this and was like, would we rather tax our bullpen, or would we rather, not necessarily start the clock as if it's some sort of service time thing, but start the pitch count earlier on in the year for our guys that we would use in the middle of the summer to help alleviate the pitch counts on other guys that are clearly on a pitch count for the season, because Lowder, Burns, and Williamson should all be on pitch counts based on how their career trajectory is right now. This is not something where they should punt this and say, whatever, Chase Burns is going to throw 200, Rhett Lowder's going to throw 200, Williams is going to throw 200. Like, that's not going to be a thing. So we were talking about this about a month ago by saying that at some point you were going to start to see guys get skipped in the rotation every so often just to manage their workload. That feels like this might get changed up a little bit, because when you're using Williamson this early, you don't have him fresh and ready to go. It kind of feels like, to me, Steve, like they're throwing all the cards on the table, which sometimes when you've got a lot of good cards, it's not a bad thing. And there's a lot of talent in this rotation, but that does mean that everybody else kind of sees what you have. And for them to be exposed like this could open themselves up to more injury risk and open themselves up to having to call upon Chase Petty, Jose Franco, Julian Aguilar, somebody like that who I initially didn't think we'd see very much of. I'm wondering now if we see more of them.
Well, we're definitely going to see some starts from Chase Petty this year, and I'm pretty sure Julian Aguilar makes an appearance as well. I'm just counting on that. I'm counting on that in the overall starts of this team for the year. If this plays out through April and May, and we get to the end of May, and 2 of these 3 starting pitchers have stretched out and clearly established themselves as these are the guys you want at the number 4 and 5 spot in the rotation, I still would like to end up in a place where I talked about there in the first segment, where you start to shuffle them through to skip the turns. Yes. And then you keep that third guy getting his work in, but going up and down between Louisville. And I think that stretches the other 2 so that they have some innings left in the tank when we get to a postseason. I think it can work out that way. By also doing it that way, where all 3 guys eventually are covering 6 or 7 innings in a start, it alleviates some of that pressure off of the bullpen. And if you've started to cycle them through Louisville, you get to bring up that extra reliever now from AAA to eat some innings in the bullpen through the dog days. So there's a lot of moving parts there. It all just kind of depends, I think, on what Derek Johnson's vision for this is long-term, how long he thinks this is going to play out. Now, Terry Francona, talking to the media yesterday, had no idea how long this was going to pay out, save to say, I don't think it's going to go on for a long time. So right. Somewhere along the way, there's going to be a shift. Do they know what that shift looks like already? I think they probably have an idea, and they're going to press Francona on this. The beat writers are going to press Terry. They're going to press Derek Johnson for an answer. Are they willing to give it and show their whole hand early on? I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to hem and haw, and they're going to kind of, aw shucks, kick the dirt a little bit. We'll figure it out when we get there. But they have a plan. They didn't roll this out without a fully formed plan. I'm convinced of that. So I think they know how the end of this looks like, what the expiration date of this is, but they're not going to tell us.
This feels like whenever you ask your parents about, like, hey, can I get that? And they'll say, oh, we'll see. They know what the answer is. They just don't want to tell you right now. And I feel like that's kind of where we are with this. Let me ask you this, because I kind of feel, and I guess it's not really going to be a question. I'm curious if you agree with me on this or not. I envisioned a playoff series that included Chase Burns as a starting pitcher. This feels like this now precludes that from happening. I feel like Burns, Lowder, and Williamson will now be relief pitchers in the playoffs, bar none.
50-50. Half dozen pick 'em. Coin flip. I could see a scenario where Chase Burns, if you manage it correctly through the dog days, he could still have some innings in his arm to start in the first round of the playoffs. You could see it. You could also see a scenario where you're right. 2 of those guys go to the bullpen and one of those guys don't make the roster and are a injury / tired replacement for when the Reds, as Jeff Passan said, win that playoff series and move on to the next round. So you have an extra guy sitting off there to the side, because in between rounds of the playoffs, you can change who's on the roster, and you can also change who's on the roster if there's an injury. I believe Major League Baseball made that accommodation a year or 2 back. So you would have that extra pitcher just sitting over there waiting in the wings, and you start plugging and playing parts in the postseason, just like you did in the regular season. So this creates a lot of interesting options. I'm really kind of excited to see how this plays out, Jeff, because there are a lot of literally, moving parts to this that will depend on how the Reds are performing, how all 3 guys are performing, what's happening within the division, what's happening in the dog days during a playoff race. This could be a lot of fun. This is an extra element to watch on top of all the regular baseball things we watch for during the course of a 162 game season. This is a little bit of intrigue in the pitcher's room now about who's going to be pushing who and who's performing well and who has the most energy in their arm right now and who's recovering better from their previous round through the rotation. This could be a lot of fun.
I want to see them reinvent the wheel on this. This will be a lot of fun, but you're right. There's far more intrigue with this decision than just with rolling with 2 of them, knowing that 2 of them are probably only throwing you 4 or 5 innings for the first 2 or 3 starts and taxing that bullpen more. The other thing that we didn't mention with all of this, and we're kind of burying it at this point, but Connor Phillips was alerted that he will make the opening day bullpen, and there's only 1 spot left now because they took 1 for the starting rotation. So there's only 1 bullpen spot left. There's quite a few guys that are fighting for that spot. However, when you look at the roster, that's pretty much the only spot that's available, right, Steve?
That's pretty much set, and we're going to dig into who and what that looks like coming up next. MLB opening day is almost here, and you can feel it. Fresh starts, big expectations, and that first crack of the bat. Whether it's a breakout rookie season or a division race that goes down to the wire, there's nothing like being in the ballpark for it. That's where Game Time comes in handy. They eliminate the long queues. They eliminate surprise fees. And if you haven't gotten your opening day tickets yet, guess what? Plenty of tickets available on Game Time right now. I just checked. Lots of sections, lots of choices. Get your opening tickets today if you want to be at GABP for opening day Abbott versus Crochet. You want to be there for that. Game Time gives you views from your seat with the seat view feature. They have zone deals where the prices drop for certain sections of the stadiums. And with that all-in pricing, no surprise fees. You know exactly what you're going to pay. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply. Again, just create your account and redeem the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today.
MLB The Show 26 is out. If you didn't pre-order it, that's fine. Today's day 1 of MLB The Show 26. You're going to have a hard time pulling yourself away from this one because they have turned up the volume when it comes to everything involved in MLB The Show 26. You can really immerse yourself with the road to the show path and make your way to the major leagues, make your way to the Hall of Fame and glory on the baseball diamond. Or, of course, you can do my favorite thing. You can play franchise mode, take the Reds all the way every day, every year, make them undefeated for 20 years in a row. Unless, of course, you like to play on something higher than rookie. Not me. But look, if you're a gamer, if you're a baseball fan, or you just want to enjoy America's pastime in a new and exciting way, you're going to love MLB The Show 26. You can play as your favorite team, your favorite player, and see if you have what it takes to win your own World Series. Visit MLBTHE.show/locked-on and use the code Locked On to unlock a pack for use in Diamond Dynasty. It's available now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch. MLB The Show 26 is rated E for everyone. A tongue-tying thing's going around. Hey, you can continue the conversation with me and Steve on social media after the show is over, in between all shows. You can follow Steve at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. You can follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. There's no F's in that. And we're on all the social media platforms with the show at Locked On Reds on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the great stuff. Check us out today. All right, Steve, when it comes to this roster, as we mentioned, there's one spot left on the pitching staff. There ain't no spots left on the field. Like, barring injury, we've pretty much got everything set here. 25 of the 26 spots are spoken for when you consider everybody else that we've heard of, because along with Connor Phillips in this decision where they said, okay, we got 6 starting pitchers, Connor Phillips made the opening day roster. And oh, by the way, Will Benson made the opening day roster too, although he's not a pitcher, but I guess Terry Francona just wanted to put that in there. Will Benson made it. So this is intriguing to see how everything has really shaped up.
It is, because it leaves a question that nobody has spoken to yet. Tito hasn't talked about it. Nick Krall hasn't talked about it, which is, if Benson has made the team, have they decided to send JJ Bleday to AAA Louisville? Because the only other option is you cut Nate Lowe. And if you cut Nate Lowe, you are carrying no position players on the bench. All of the days off,
position players,
infield position players, all of the days off, all of the, if anything happens, has to be covered by guys moving around on the field. Because if you bring Bleday, that leaves you a bench of, I thought I had it in front of me, that leaves you a bench of Bleday, Benson, Myers, and Trevino as your backup catcher.
Yep.
So if you go that way, so I think what makes sense is you send JJ Bleday down, have him as a spare part in Louisville, and Nate Lowe makes this team as your backup first baseman, as your hitter off the bench that has a little bit of pop. I think they've made the announcement without making the announcement.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, like, you know, which name doesn't belong, or which name did we not say, like the algebra problem that we all hate. What's the value of A? Well, the value of A is Nathaniel Lowe, because they have not mentioned whether Nate Lowe has made the roster yet, but it makes sense that he does, because without him, you're right, Noelvi Marte will be playing time on the infield. Spencer Steer will be playing time in the infield. And then at some point you could have an outfield that is all left-handed of JJ Bleday, Will Benson, and TJ Friedl. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think that the balance of this roster is begging for Nate Lowe to be on the bench. And I also think too that, like, Nick Krall wants to celebrate that move. He got lucky that Nate Lowe was available and that he was going to take league minimum to be a Cincinnati Red, a guy that has had a decent career. We've talked about Nate Lowe in the past, that he's had a decent career. He just had a rough season last year, and the Reds are going to luck out extremely so by him being available to them for what they're getting him for. So when you look around the diamond, you've got 5 outfielders. I'm counting Spencer Steer as an outfielder, because at this point I expect him to play more left field than anything. But you got Spencer Steer in left. Will Benson I put in left, but he could play all 3 outfield spots. TJ Friedl and Dane Myers in center, but again, Dane Myers can play all 3 outfield spots. TJ Friedl's been playing a lot in the left field. We'll see him there as well on different days. And Noelvi Marte and right. I think the whole discussion of will he or won't he make it has been completely overblown. I expect Noelvi Marte on this opening day roster and would be shocked otherwise. So then you look around the infield. I labeled Eugenio Suarez as the third baseman. He's clearly going to play more time at DH, but just for this exercise, it makes the most sense. Suarez and Hayes at third, Ellie De La Cruz at short, Matt McClain at second, Sal Stewart and Nate Lowe at first, and then your catchers are Tyler Stevenson and Jose Trevino. Honestly, before they had Nathaniel Lowe added to this roster, you could have made a case for Bleday and Benson to be here, because you can move McClain to short if Ellie needs a day off. You can move Sal Stewart to second or third. You can move Suarez to third if Hayes isn't playing there, and all those different things. And of course, Spencer Steer can play all those spots. Noelvi Marte, you could play at third base in a pinch as well. But all that being said, like, I feel like Nate Lowe is a must add. He's looked pretty good this spring, but he also brings the kind of veteran panache that this bench is begging for.
Yeah, if you look at Nate Lowe's spring, you know, slash line of 241, 353, 517, couple home runs in 12 games. He has something left in the tank, Jeff. You look at his, you know, last year, you look at his 2 stops combined, time in Washington and in Boston. You know, he hit, was it 18 home runs? I had it in front of me. Sorry. 18 home runs. He had 18 home runs last year. That's a little pop off the bench that this team needs.
Right.
I think that's the guy. And I like the idea of having one of Benson or Bleday down in Louisville as a spare part. Tito says Benson's making the team, so it's Bleday. I think we know the roster. If you're watching on YouTube, Jeff had that graphic up there with everybody in their spots. That's the team. I think we're going to find out here in a couple days that this is the team. This is what opening day looks like in the city of Cincinnati. This is your position player group for the 2026 Cincinnati Reds.
And I think that we pretty much know the opening day lineup as well. Like the only thing that you can really shift around is 6 through 9, but even 9, I just kind of feel like that's Ke'Bryan Hayes. So 6 through 8 could shift around a little bit, but I don't think anybody would be shocked whatever that order might be. We know who 1 through 5 is. We know who 9 is. I'm excited because this is not something that we've done in years past where we're like, yeah, we got a little over a week till opening day, but we already know who the roster's going to be. Because you know who does that? Good teams. Good teams don't have multiple handfuls of spots that are still open as you break camp and you're like, who are they going to pick? And that's not the case for the Reds anyway. Like we came into camp knowing that there was a pretty good shot that they had their roster and they knew who it was going to be. And they weren't going to be laboring until the final moment to be like, golly, I mean, him or him, 6 1, half dozen the other. They have their roster. And I'm very excited to see how this is going to play out. From now until opening day, it's just going to be about who stays healthy. And that's going to be the key thing here is that everybody's got to recover well and stuff like that. But I'm excited to see how this team goes, Steve. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And just for fun, 6 through 9 for me, I don't see if you disagree, but 6 through 9 for me is Steer, Marte, Stevenson, Ke'Bryan Hayes.
I'm good with that. Like I could see a flipping of Stevenson and Marte, but Marte provides more upside to me. Like I think Marte has an argument that if he's going, he could hit in the middle. But this team just has so many of those guys that
I picked that because of what Tito's already told us, which is that Gino's going to bat 4th and that Sal Stewart's going to hit 5th. You know, he's already decided that. So I think that pushes Spencer Steer to 6. Then I go into LV at 7, you know, and then catcher, non-hitter in Ke'Bryan Hayes. So 8, 9.
And just 2 more words about Will Benson. Like, I'm really excited to see that he won this battle with JJ Bleday. There's a lot of folks that have been like, man, Bleday had a really good spring. What was it that they were seeing? And I honestly think it's the pop. It's more of a power equation with Will Benson, and then sure, he could play all 3 outfield spots, but I don't think that was enough for them to be like, well, yeah, all 3 outfield spots. Of course he makes it over Bleday. I think it's the pop, and they are seeing something in his game that is slightly different from last year that they want to see more of. The biggest challenge to him will be the contact rate. I wrote about this over at CincinnatiRedstock.com that his career contact rate is just below 68%. JJ Bleday's is a little bit over 74%. So, like, if he does have problems with the swing and miss and he strikes out a bunch, the Reds are going to be like, look, we got this dude that we know can make a lot of contact, and they can shift them around if need be because both guys have options. So you can kind of play the option game with the 2 of them. I think that the Reds really set themselves up nicely, though, by adding Bleday and adding that depth. But I'm excited to see that Benson won that battle.
Yeah, and the other piece of it, I know you talk about it a lot in prep. I can't remember if it's made it into the show or not, but there is a statistic, a metric for basically the strength of the guy they're facing, right? And Bleday faced easier pitching, basically. Yes. That's how it boils down.
Lower level minor league pitching. Yeah, because like Baseball Reference rates them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a major leaguer, 8 being a AAA guy, 7 being a AA guy. Benson was above 8. I think last I saw he was 8.2, and Bleday was like 7.4. So there's almost a whole level difference between the 2 opponents' quality. So it's like, yeah, you still need to go, and Bleday's been going, but they understand there's been a bit of a gap there.
And that is where we're going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds your first listen each and every day. For the audio folks, go make Locked On MLB your second listen. Sully's got you covered over there with Major League Baseball from a national perspective. Mike Stanton, former Reds pitcher, has you covered over there of Major League Baseball from a player's perspective. Check that out in the audio feeds. For the video folks, stick around. We're going to send you over to Locked On's first ever 24/7 national YouTube channel where all of the experts of the Locked On Network are talking ball 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll be back in your feeds tomorrow, gathering up the news, the notes, the rumors, the reports, the information to keep you locked on Reds every single day. What are you wearing? I meant to say something about that cardigan. Was that from Guinness? Did you get that in Ireland?
Guinness cardigan. Got this from Guinness in Ireland. Oh yeah. Love it.
That.
Then I have a Great Lakes Brewing St. Patty's Day t-shirt underneath. I'm just all St. Patty's. I'm so happy.
All leaned in. It's time for some Guinness.
Slancha.